I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. One of the most consistently strong voices in the Democratic Party comes from a woman whose name you might not know. But believe me, every important political figure in the party does know. Sarah Kovner is a rare combination of principle, pragmatism, and work.
Stress the work.
Stress the work. I want to talk about the presidential election. You want to talk about the races in the House and the Senate this year. That explains what the difference is. Tell me what's going to happen. We're having a lot of elections,
Yes.
both
Congressional elections
Right.
in every congressional district
Right.
in the country.
And
where
Senate
the seats
races
are
in
2 years.
what, a third?
Senate races in the third.
Right.
And some really key races coming up.
And an opportunity to change leadership
Absolutely.
in both parties.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is going to happen? First of all, what do we need? 15 seats in the House?
We as Democrats need
Yeah.
15 seats in the House.
And
in the Senate,
6.
we need 6.
Right. So are Democrats going to get it?
All the conventional wisdom, whatever that is, but it's my instinct, having met so many of the candidates and seeing how well they're doing in the polling and the kind of issues that they're raising, that we're going to do better in the House than 15.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think we could do 20 or 25.
Now, your interest, the way you've decided that you can help is by basically raising money.
Well, that's this year.
This year,
Yeah, I mean,
this
other
year.
years too, but this year we're basically raising money because, as you know, New York is a bank
Right.
for candidates around the country.
Right.
Democrats are here. Democrats who care about what's going on in other places in the country are here, and a lot of people give money. Some give $25 and some give $2,500. But everyone wants to help in other states because they know if you elect somebody in Montana as a Democrat, it's as good a vote as it is if it comes from New York.
As long as it's Democratic.
Well, of course, yes. That goes without saying.
So what are the Democratic races in the Senate that we're mostly concentrating on?
There are a few races in the Senate where we have to hold on to seats. Maria Cantwell and that's not the 6th.
Right.
That's assuming we win all of
Right.
these. Maria Cantwell in the state of Washington won by a very slim majority 6 years ago. Very, very slim. It took a couple of weeks to do the recounts. She's up a few points, but it's a tough seat. Mark Dayton in Minnesota is not running again, another Democrat. And we have a great Democrat, Amy Klobuchar, who is running. She's the district attorney of Hennepin County, which is St. Paul, and a big part of the state, voting-wise. And she's a great candidate. We have to hold that seat. In Maryland,
Who's opposing her? Is it
someone named Mark Green. No, not Mark Green. Mark Kennedy. I think there's another Mark Green running someplace else beside our Mark Green. Mark Kennedy. He's a congressman out there.
Is she?
And she's well ahead.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Good.
And then in Maryland, Paul Sarbanes, who's been a great Democrat
Wonderful.
all these years, is not running again. And there's a primary today between Congressman Ben Cardin from the Baltimore area and Kwasi Nfume, who was a former congressman. There are a couple of minor candidates.
And the head of the NAACP.
He's
right.
been head of the NAACP, although he's not anymore.
And who's the stronger candidate? Is there one that is?
Well, the polls that I see show Cardin having a better chance in November. And it's complicated because the Republican candidate, Kwasi Nfume is African American. The Republican candidate is the lieutenant governor right now, and he is African American. So there is that complication or added effect, let's say. Those are seats we have to hold. I think there may be another one that I'm not thinking of right now. But in terms of the challengers, we've got some really great opportunities. In Montana, which I mentioned before, John Tester,
Right.
who is an organic farmer and the head of the state Senate in Montana, a progressive, a real Midwest or far West progressive guy we'd be happy to have him in New York, I can say that. We'd be happy to have him as our senator. Yeah, he's that good. And he's running against Conrad Burns, who is the poster boy for Jack Abramoff in that scandal.
The incumbent.
He's the incumbent. Yeah, these are all Republican incumbents now.
I see. Okay.
These are the ones we have to take. Harold Ford, who's a congressman in Tennessee, is running. I think that's first seat, but it's a Republican-held seat. And he's running a very aggressive campaign. He's a great candidate. It's a tight race.
Virginia.
I hope he'll prevail.
Yeah.
Virginia is a late starter. Jim Webb, who was, believe it or not, Secretary of the Navy under Ronald Reagan, came from a Democratic family, became Secretary of the Navy under Ronald Reagan, is totally opposed to the war in Iraq, and has the same values that we have on, most things we can think of. You and I am speaking of.
Yeah.
Won the primary in a, quite an upstart campaign, and he's a very good candidate.
And he's catching on, isn't he?
And he's catching on.
And his opponent
fundraiser
is losing.
And his opponent, George Allen, Senator Allen, who thought he was going to run for president in 2008, is just making one gaffe after another.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful in that one. In Rhode Island, there's another big race.
And that depends on
Lincoln Chafee.
primary.
Part of it that depends on the Republican primary today. Lincoln Chafee, who is
Or yesterday.
yes, or yesterday, right? I'm sorry, yesterday, September 12th.
Right.
Lincoln Chafee, who was probably the most liberal Republican in the Senate, said he wouldn't even vote for George Bush in 2004. Wrote in his father's name, I think, his own name. He's being challenged by a conservative in the Republican primary.
So the Democrats, even though it hurts you in your heart to oppose Chafee, the Democrats are hoping
that the other guy wins. And I'll tell you, it doesn't hurt me in my heart to oppose Chafee, because the one important vote that every senator or every congressperson has to, the most important vote that they cast, is for organizing the Senate. And if he voted for Frist last time, and he will vote for whoever, they'll put up some, person who will just kowtow to whatever Bush's views are. He does that. It doesn't matter after that he opposes the war, because he sets the tone for all the committees and the whole organization of the Senate or the House. So it hurts me that he didn't become a Democrat.
Right.
That's what he should be.
He should be, yes. People,
the
party no longer reflects
and Rhode Island.
Rockefeller, Republican kind of thing.
And Rhode Island is totally Democratic.
Right. Now, Bernie Sanders is running as...
He's running for the Jeffords seat. He's running as an independent. He will vote to organize with the Democrats.
Right.
He's way ahead.
Yeah.
So that's not one of the six, because we had that
before
with Jeffords when he switched.
Yeah. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is a key state. Rick Santorum, who's one of the most conservative Republicans in the Senate, and I think maybe there are a couple more conservative, but he's so outspoken that he is like the leader of the conservative cause. And our candidate is Bob Casey, who's the state treasurer, whose father was governor, who is not pro-choice.
Right.
That's probably the only thing that we can say, that I can say, that concerns me about him. He is for family planning. He's for international family planning, but he doesn't support abortion. So that's difficult. But of course, Rick Santorum doesn't support anything we care about.
And he will vote with the Democrats again. So
of course, there's no question. He is a Democrat.
Right. What are his chances?
His chances are very good. He's ahead. But we know what the Republicans do. The last week, they throw $5 million into negative ads in each of these districts.
The Washington Post yesterday ran an article that's saying that the Republicans are going to spend 90% of the $50 million they've raised on negative advertising.
95%.
95%.
Yes, it's just unbelievable.
On totally,
and that's what they do.
And
totally negative.
That they've sent people out to each of the districts, and that includes the congressional races as well, to research all the records they could find on the candidates.
And that's all they have.
Accusing them of everything.
Because that's all they have. And when they do those ads at the end, that last weekend and over those last 4 or 5 days, there's virtually nothing you can do about it. It's very hard to answer it, because you haven't bought the time, you haven't got the information to digest, to produce a piece to answer it. So you can answer it in the press, but who knows what the press is.
And a lot of it is direct mail also.
And a lot of it is direct mail. It comes at the very end, and it's too late.
So did I cut off some of the races?
Yes. Missouri, Claire McCaskill, a very important race. She's running against the incumbent Jim Talent. And Claire has been in government for about 20 years. She has won every race that she's ever won. She's state auditor now, which in Missouri is an elected office. And she's won every race but one, which was 2 years ago. And she's a tremendous candidate. And she'll make a great addition. The added Philip in Missouri, there are two. One is the minimum wage is on the ballot to raise the minimum wage, which should bring out a heavy Democratic turnout, and even some Republicans who support raising the minimum wage so that somebody can buy food to eat. I would hope they would do that. But beyond that, there's a stem cell proposal on the ballot that would allow stem cell research in Missouri. And of course, the Democrats are totally behind it, but even many mainstream Republicans, former Senator John Danforth, who gave us Clarence Thomas, for which we don't forgive him easily. It was his protege. But on this one, he's the chair of this effort to get this stem cell ballot initiative passed.
And where does she stand?
Well, she is, of course, for it, and and Jim Talent was for it, then against it, then for it, and then he's against it.
And how are they in the polls?
She's a couple of points ahead of him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and she's a great candidate. But then we have Ohio, let's not forget Ohio. And we have Sherrod Brown, who's running. He's a 13-year incumbent in the House of Representatives from Northern Ohio, Lorraine, and goes down around Cleveland. Very progressive. Not only was against the war, every day he reads the names of soldiers who have been killed in battle into the congressional record, and he's been doing that since this war began. He's a great candidate, and he's running against Mike DeWine, who is the incumbent again. He is ahead. And in addition, in Ohio, and this is true in a couple of other states as well, there's a candidate for, the gubernatorial race is open. Taft, who was the governor, had a 15% approval rating as of the last time it was looked at, so he's not running again. But Ken Blackwell is running, and Ken Blackwell, as some of our viewers will remember, is the Secretary of State of Ohio. He's the person who sent one voting machine where there should have been three in black districts 2 years ago, and many other situations that he was in charge of the voting. As secretaries of state, not in New York, but in many other states, are in charge of all the logistics of voting. What voting machines are picked, how absentee ballots get set up, everything. Registration.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. So Ted Strickland, who's a congressperson, our candidate, is running, and he's way ahead.
That's good.
So that's a double that we might have.
So you're bringing a sense of optimism about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what can people do if they don't give money?
Well, there are people, and I've worked on these kinds of situations before, where we make phone calls into those districts. With cell phones now, you don't even have to set up phone banks. You bring your cell phone to Central Park or Prospect Park,
and you just sit there.
And you sit there, and they give you names of people in Ohio or Pennsylvania to call.
What do you call the Democratic National Committee? Or?
No, there are groups. Though I don't know. Is this station able to take emails from people who want to know?
Yeah.
Okay. If you email here to what?
Well, they'll put it up.
I'll get you the information because there are groups in New York who are functioning. They're grassroots groups who worked in 2004, and in some cases they actually go to the states. They have bus trips, and they take a day, and they go knocking on doors.
Are there websites that you look at?
Well, there probably are. We'll do it.
We're almost halfway through the program, and I have a lot to talk to you about.
Okay.
How do you think? We've known each other for so many years, I can't even begin to add them up. But you were the first person I heard of, and I've always told you this, that I thought you were 55 years old 50 years ago.
I wouldn't mind being 55 years old right now.
Sarah Kovner, and you were a state committee person, right? From the Village Independent Democrats, which was the club that defeated Carmine DeSapio. So you were at the beginning of the reform movement. Look at politics now in New York and politics then. Big difference?
Yes, there is a big difference. I mean, it was more black and white then, although maybe it wasn't really so black and white.
But
we thought it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
right.
made it black and white.
That's right. There is a sense of maturity on our part, right?
That's right. And my father always used to say when we were running in our reform campaigns, he said, you know, in 25 years, you people will be the same. And we're not quite.
Not quite.
No,
but,
we're not.
But
we're not corrupt.
Politics all over has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Part of it's been television.
Well, a big part of it is television. I think that's the major part.
Right. And then the other part, though, is really the reforms in the nominating process. I mean, so-called reforms in the nominating process, doing away with the conventions.
The national.
Right.
Yeah,
that
for the
we used to
national
think
process.
was boss-controlled, and so now we have all these primaries, and it costs so much money.
And we don't necessarily get the best candidate or the candidate that it would be supported by the majority
Right.
of either the party or the voters. But I think the worst part of it is television. And that's something that has changed in our lifetime. I mean, television in terms of how it impacts campaigns and the money that goes onto television.
Do you
ads.
think the commercials are always effective? Of course, now I'm in a local frame of reference. So you watch these commercials for Cuomo or Green for Attorney General because they are the basic ones that are on. They're the same commercials that you see over and over again. Who is that going to convince?
Yeah. I prefer the commercials for Spitzer. I think Elliot Spitzer has great commercials.
But
They're so positive.
Exactly.
Well, some people are convinced the opposite. I mean, some people say it's too negative.
Right.
I'm not going to vote for either of them.
Right.
Or I'm going to vote for this one or that one because it's less negative. But there are some statistics, and I don't know them, that I've seen over the years that say that these negative commercials do have their impact.
And that's what we worry about with the Republicans.
And that's what we worry about with the Republicans.
But is television...
And look at the Swift boat.
Right. That was...
ads against John Kerry, making a hero in the Vietnam War into somebody who was not trustworthy and you couldn't believe vis-a-vis George Bush.
But do you think it was the Swift boat commercials or just John Kerry's campaign?
No.
I mean, it was a combination.
It was a combination, but the Swift boat commercials had a major effect. And the fact that they weren't answered,
made
of course.
So you get the television advertising, but you also get the television coverage and all the pundits that are on television that, in a way, set the tone for what people think.
But most people don't watch those pundits. You and I watch them.
I don't even
on
watch
Sunday
them
morning.
most of the time. I just watch the Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think we really, few people who watch them.
You think so?
But I think the coverage, just the regular news coverage is very bad. Yeah. And not balanced at all. Fair and balanced Fox News. It's just not balanced. And until we can have the McCain-Feingold reforms and, supposedly taking the money out of politics. It doesn't take the money out. Money will always find a way to have its influence. Until you get something like they have in Britain, where you actually have a half an hour every night. Each candidate has a half an hour. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
You can speak. You can have people speak about you. You can produce.
It's every
spots.
night that every candidate has that?
I think it's pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's only for 3 or 4 weeks.
It's a short election.
Yeah.
It's a limited amount of money.
Right.
It is, isn't it? Although they're spending more money now.
They're spending more money. They too are finding ways to spend it. But they have the television, which is free.
Right. And which makes eminent sense since
Absolutely.
the airwaves belong to the people, as
It
they would
belongs to
say.
the people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
And that's what we should have. And until we have something like that, where you cannot buy commercials.
Right.
Or you can only buy a half an hour, where you can actually talk. And I don't even like that because then you still need to have the money.
Right.
And they always raise the rates for public.
And it's a whole industry. It's an enormous industry
it's an enormous
now. Not only
industry.
do the networks want the money, but the people who make the films and do the stuff and everything else. And it's just...
And the problem with these spots, these 30-second spots, which I guess may be the attention span of the American public, but that's partly because they've been dumbed down by expecting that.
Right.
So they don't want to watch 5 minutes because they're used to watching 30 seconds. What can you say in 30 seconds?
And 30 seconds, it's just a... It's like this constant, it's in a form of torture. It's the same message that comes all the time.
It's like the
and
water
you never see
torture.
it. Right.
Drip, 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 but fast.
One of the things that I also have seen as the difference is the lack of roles for volunteers. The difference in our lifetime when when I felt, and maybe it was just because I was more involved, that the campaigns were much more spirited.
Oh, they were.
And exciting. Right?
Well, because there was no money on television. The way you campaigned was going door to door, or having rallies, or having people over to your house and talking about the candidate, and having a speaker, and having motorcades.
Right.
You know,
Exciting.
in
Parades
New Jersey, we had motorcades with, you know, little flashers that.
Right.
I mean, and that's because, and that's where the whatever money, and that didn't cost very much money.
But they put their money there.
They put their money there. And whatever money came in after that went on to television. And the people who ran the campaigns, I love David Garth dearly, but
he was,
you know, he really changed it.
He really came in
really
the
came in at the
60s, and he started with his television advertisements.
Right.
And Lindsay's campaign was
and
one of them.
Didn't believe in field. I'm sure I'll hear from him on that subject. But he didn't believe in the field.
We used to talk about that as the field operation.
The field operation.
Right.
Now, to the extent that there are still field operations in congressional races.
Right.
There's no doubt,
Yeah.
because congressional races can't necessarily have, and they might have some ads on television or radio. Radio is another good vehicle.
Medium,
That's a better
yeah.
medium, because you can have more time.
Right.
People pay more attention. But in the congressional races, there is much more door-to-door. And in 2004, when I worked with ACT, America Coming Together, I wasn't raising money. What I was doing was recruiting people in New York to go into other states and spend a week or 2 weeks or a month and actually go campaigning.
Are you surprised also at the payrolls of campaigns? I've never gotten over that, because I've never gotten paid to work in a campaign, and I don't think you have either.
Not in a very long time. And when I got paid, it was maybe $100 a week, you know, to work full time.
Right. So that's another thing that's gone out of politics, was the citizen spirit that takes you into them. And I miss all of that, and I can't help but feel that affects how people feel about politicians and politics. I mean, you don't have a thing unless you're going to contribute to a campaign, or, as you said, have the initiative and the know-how to find some way you can do it something else.
Well, and people are doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, they really
Right.
are doing
Yeah.
it in these congressional races. There's a tremendous amount of local activity and house parties and rallies and door to door. There are many, thousands of people going door to door now.
You have, when I introduced you, I said you were pragmatic, because you have very strong opinions and very high standards, but sometimes you'll override them, as in the case of Casey in Pennsylvania. There are voters who have a strict list of stuff, and that's it. You don't support it, and we go on. You remember when you and I started, really, this coalition for a democratic alternative?
I remember it well.
And that
1967.
was 1967, against the war in Vietnam and bringing it into the political process. Why don't we have that now? What's happened?
Well,
Is it no draft?
Well, no draft is definitely, in terms of the Iraq War, no draft is definitely a factor.
I think we're going to hear more about the draft. It was very interesting. The president spoke and enlarged, basically, the war on terrorism, including embracing Iraq, but also enlarging it. And Bob Schieffer, the guy on CBS, who's a wonderful reporter, mentioned that a draft. That would make a difference, don't you think?
Well, Charlie Rangel has been pushing for a draft.
Yeah.
He doesn't really believe in a draft.
Right. None of us
because
do.
he doesn't believe in a war.
Right.
But having served in Korea himself and being against this war, he said, let's have a draft, and then let's everybody go.
The kids go.
And then we'll see how fast this war is ended. And I think that is the fact. That is the truth of the matter.
The president mentioned volunteers. This is a volunteer army.
Oh.
And the volunteer army is composed of a lot of people who are there because it's a job.
And also because, they needed $30 extra a month, so they signed up for the National Guard, or it was a way to get a college education. Right. They're not even in the Army, these people. They're in the National Guard or in the reserves, and they didn't think that they're in the Army anymore. But they did it for economic reasons, not all of them, but some of them.
Economic and education.
Yeah.
We have 2 minutes, which is really shocking. Let's talk about the importance of the Democrats, of changing. Have you ever seen a government as bad as the one we have now?
Never. And I'm old. I have never in my
You're
life
not old.
never seen a government that is so, that it just thumbs its nose in the face of every issue that we all care about. And you take the environment, well, the war, it goes without saying, but the environment, the park service, the coasts, what happened with Katrina last year, I think that was a real turning point for Bush. Everyone has said it, but it's true.
Yeah.
When Americans saw on television every single day the utter disregard for Americans, we're not talking about all the Iraqis we kill every day. We're not even talking about that, which is a very important and terrible subject. We don't count those people. But American citizens calling for help, and the president stays on his ranch. I would have commandeered every helicopter in the whole country to go down there and pick up those people off the roofs and take them someplace. But they didn't do that. So it's just a disregard for the people of this country, and they're turning everything back. And until we can, if we can win at least one House this year, we can start having hearings, start calling them to account, making them accountable to the people again. And I think that is a very important effect that we'll have.
And people should understand that if they don't understand what he's talking about, there's a good reason that they don't understand.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to.
And it doesn't make sense.
No, but he repeats it often enough.
Right. And common sense is a very important attribute in judging on a part of a citizen of what's going on. Right.
Right. Common sense and some knowledge.
Yeah.
You have to pay some attention to what's going on. Right. But you know, I sometimes I don't have faith in the voters, but this year I have faith that their common sense is going to override maybe their lack of knowledge.
Well, thank you very much for this program.
Thank you,
Our time
Ronnie.
is up.
To be continued.
Yes, definitely. If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.